Welcome to our first tutorial on the PSIPRED Workbench. The PSIPRED Workbench offers a variety of machine learning based tools for predicting structural and functional features for proteins. In this first tutorial, we'll present an overview of the workbench and its various features, and we'll be focusing on how to use specific tools in future video tutorials. When you arrive at our website, you're going to be presented with this form. This is the input form for protein sequence data, and we'll describe that in a bit more detail in just a second. First of all, let's have a look at the site navigation. So over here on the left, we have the various links for the site navigation, but importantly for this tutorial, the section PSIPRED Workbench links are the navigation links for the workbench itself. The top link, entitled PSIPRED Workbench, if you click that, will always bring you back to this form. Our second link, Workbench Overview, gives you little potted descriptions of each of the machine learning methods. You'll find that each of these descriptions is mostly cribbed from the published paper for each of the methods. If you're interested in citing the workbench or any of the methods, then the Workbench Citation link will bring you to a list of each of the citations. So importantly, if you're citing the workbench itself, we have this NAR paper, and then we have citations for each of the methods available. Perhaps really importantly, our Help in Tutorials link. We have a long tutorial document describing the features of the server itself. We start with some brief contents, so we have links to our YouTube tutorials at the top, and we have links down into the actual contents of the tutorial page here. As I scroll down, we repeat some of the overview information, just describing each of the methods, before we get to describing the functionality of the server itself. So to begin with, we describe the input data form, so we'll go through that in a bit more detail in this video in a second, but we describe what each of the fields in the form are expecting as input data or what you're to select. Next up, some of our methods have some advanced options where you get to configure the prediction itself, and so we describe these in a little detail here just so that you understand what those are. And after that, in these green panels, we describe the results. So our results pages are somewhat generic. They always have the same panels, and so each of those panels are just described here. And again, we'll go through those in a bit more detail later in this video. And then method by method, we describe the output for each method here, mostly describing the different diagrams that come back from each method. If a video tutorial is available for the method, we also provide links for those here. So let's just scroll back up to the top of the page. We have a quick link to the YouTube tutorial. So if I just click that, it'll take us through to YouTube where you can find our other video tutorials. You may have already have seen these if you're watching this video tutorial. Coming back, we have a link for our REST API. So you can access the web server and its methods via the web page. And here you can enter like single proteins at a time if you're interested in just analyzing a couple of proteins. You can also access all of our methods programmatically. So if you'd like to write a Python or a Perl or Java script that sends data to our server and picks up the results, you can do that with our REST API. And we have our REST API endpoints and the submission process documented on this page. Possibly, I think most importantly of all, there's an example script written in Python that shows you how to submit data in a programmatic fashion and how to pull the server for results. That's maybe the most useful thing that's probably on this page. Last of all, in our navigation link, we have a link to our GitHub pages. So all of our methods are available to download. So if you don't want to use the REST API or you don't want to use the web server, you can download the methods yourself and run them locally on your own computing hardware. These are reasonably technical to get going. So if you're just interested in running a couple of analyses, then you might wish to stick to the web server. But if you're thinking about analyzing tens of thousands of proteins, then you're probably best advised to download the software from GitHub, install it yourself, and run it on your own hardware. Coming back to the website, let's have a look at the input form and running a simple job. So here I'll select the PSIPRED Workbench link, and this gives us the sequence data form. So at the top of the form, we have a panel for the type of input data. So we accept protein sequence in single letter code, or we can accept structural data as PDB files. And so you get to select what your input data here is. And you'll notice the form changes color just to highlight that you're looking at the different input types and to highlight the fact that you're looking at different predictive methods. Obviously, we have different methods for analyzing different types of data. Just looking at the sequence data, we have a range of different analyses, and we try and just give you a potted description of what those are beside each one. But you can also mouse over each one. There's a little tooltip that has a little more information if you're curious. And so the first thing to do is we will select a method. So let us say we are going to select PSIPRED. And then scrolling down again, we have the kind of submission data area. So in this case, this is protein sequence. And so if we click for a test sequence, we have a couple of example sequences here that you can try. And one of these example sequences here is hosted at Uniprot. So let me just copy that, paste it into the protein sequence box. We always request next that you provide a name for your job. So let's say tutorial. And so if you've submitted multiple jobs, by giving it a name, you can keep track of which job is which, really. Optionally, you can provide an email address. We would advise that you provide an email address because then we can email you when the results are finished calculating. Some of our methods are quite quick, but other methods take a little bit of time and you might want to go away from the web page or you might want to close the web page or so forth. Here, if I press submit, the data is submitted and we present you with the results page. So we have these little time spinners spinning while things are calculating. But very roughly, the results page is laid out similarly for every method. While the result is calculating, up here in the top right, we have a little panel that tries to give you an estimate of the runtime of the job. In the case of PSIPRED, it's quite quick, so usually a little less than 2 minutes, sometimes as long as 20 minutes. Once a job is finished, you're presented with a handful of standard panels. So let's start at the top here. We have a little summary panel at the top. So this just repeats back to you the name that you gave the job when you submitted the data. We also have a results link. So in the web page address bar, you can always use this link to get your results. If for some reason you didn't get it from there or you didn't notice, you can copy the same information out of this little box here under the copy link, or you can press the copy button just to copy it onto your clipboard. So you can get the results link in a variety of different ways. If you've left an email with us, then when the job is finished, we will send you back that link so you can retrieve your results. For sequence data, we always have this first panel that we call sequence plot. And so this shows you the sequence that you submitted to us. And if the method makes annotations on the sequence, each residue will be colored as per that annotation, so as per the prediction. In this case, we made a secondary structure prediction, so we've colored the residues as per the predicted secondary structure. The next standard area that we have on the page is our downloads section. So our downloads section are the different files that are produced by each predictor and which are used to draw the diagrams you're looking at on the page. The first link is always this get zip file link, and the get zip file link bundles together all of the different text files, all of the different predictor outputs into a single zip file for your convenience. And if you click that, you'll see that it downloads the zip file. I'll just click keep here for Chrome. Our next link in the downloads is always the job configuration. So this is a plain text file that describes the different steps, the different pieces of software, their version numbers, and the parameters that were used to run that piece of software. If I click that, that will be downloaded. That's a CSV file, and we'll discuss what's in each of those in the different tutorial videos on the channel. Underneath those two things, we then have all the different outputs, so the different text files that are output by each method. In the case of PSIPRED, it produces 2 different text files that you can download. Different methods produce many different or more or fewer text files. If you submitted a sequence file, we have this sequence resubmission widget here on the side. So consider if we were looking at the output of, say, PSIPRED, and we think, oh, it's quite interesting that the first, I don't know, let's say half of our sequence And if we hover over the first residue, it will tell us the first residue here is position 1. And maybe we're interested in everything up to this bit of coil, which is position 141. We might look at the prediction and think, oh, that's an interesting sequence, region of the sequence from, say, residue 1 to 141. And so in our resubmission widget, we can subset our sequence. So we give it a new start coordinate, so from the first residue to 141, and we can choose to run a different predictor on that subsequence. So we could, rerun a secondary structure prediction, or we could run PSIPRED and so forth. Then if we're interested in resubmitting it, we click resubmit, and it would submit a new job, a new prediction just on that subset of your sequence. So you can use this to kind of explore subsets of your sequence, particularly if you've got large sequences, and perform extra predictions. Below the sequence plot, we display extra diagrams, extra tables of information that different predictors produce. So in the case of our secondary structure predictor, we produce this confidence cartoon, so we produce that here. Different methods will produce tables of results, tables of data that have links to other things, and so forth. But that roughly summarizes the different regions in our results page. Our main annotation, sequence plot, the downloads, and the resubmission widget. So that completes our overview tutorial for the PSIPRED Workbench, and hopefully you'll explore further and watch some of the tutorials for the other methods on the channel.